I hope you are all safe and healthy, and I welcome you to the 2020-2021 Lieutenant Governor Training. My name is Lonnie Johnson, Governor-elect of the 2019-2020 PNW District of Kiwanis International. I am joined by our esteemed current Governor, Melanie Bozak, our District Secretary, Ed Luttrell, acting as Director, Gary Beller, Tech Guru Extraordinaire, acting as Producer, District Treasurer Janelle Lawrence, as well as past Governor Jackie Sue McFarland and Bill Glenn, past Lieutenant Governor. As you are aware, this method of training is new to all of us and subject to typical malfunctions. As we go through all of the training, if something suddenly stops, be patient. Try signing in again or refresh your screen, etc. If one of us makes a mistake, be patient. That definitely includes me. I am subject to error, as all of us are. If you have any questions, either during the various Q&A sessions or at any time, please be signed in and use the chat box to ask your questions. We are here to pass on essential information to help you perform your duties as Lieutenant Governor in the coming year, and to give you the tools necessary to lead your division to be the best it can be. As you might imagine, this has been a challenging year, and you, no doubt, have experienced some changes like nothing you've ever experienced before. I know I have, and while very challenging, it's been exciting too. We're exploring new ways to communicate, new ways to behave, as in social distancing, and to try to create a positive outlook on the new normal. To my knowledge, this is the first time a training of this type has occurred in the Pacific Northwest District, and I find that exciting and groundbreaking. And I hope this evening and tomorrow meet your expectations, as well as mine. We, you and I, have an unprecedented opportunity before us to lead the PNW District in a recovery from this pandemic. We have a daunting task ahead, but I feel we can do it. One step, one day at a time. It all starts with our members, the very foundation of our organization. You will hear more on this in just a few minutes. So sit back, relax, and let's begin your training as a Lieutenant Governor. Why don't we start first by hearing from our 2020-2021 International President, Art Riley.
Congratulations on becoming a Lieutenant Governor. It means our members believe in you and your ability to lead them. They know your strengths, and they have seen your passion and dedication. Becoming a Lieutenant Governor is a huge responsibility. I hope it will also bring you satisfaction. To support you in your new role, education and training are available. I also encourage you to look to past Lieutenant Governors and leaders who have faced many of the same challenges you will encounter. I know you will be exceptional. Together, we will accomplish great things for Kiwanis and the children we serve. I look forward to celebrating your many successes in the year ahead. Thank you for your service. Thank you for your leadership. Thank you for taking on this new role and making Kiwanis an important part of your life.
Hi, this is Paul V. Meister, Lieutenant Governor of Division 66, Mount Hood area. I'd like to speak to you from my perspective, the role of Lieutenant Governor in the Pacific Northwest District post-COVID-19. What I'm going to share with you is probably nothing new, or it might be. I know when I became Lieutenant Governor, it was a new and daunting proposition. I had to meet people I never knew before. What was I going to say at the initial meeting with each club? Was I going to see a dog and pony show? So many unknowns. Well, you and Google Maps are going to be great friends. So let's couple all that with COVID-19 pandemic. We all have been affected by it at a variety of levels. Sure changed how I functioned. It kept me from physically meeting with the clubs I serve. I'm from a rural, remote area and have to travel more or less than 100 miles to meet my fellow Kiwanians as a Lieutenant Governor. I'm sure your experiences coping with this current pandemic these past few months has been challenging as well. One bright thing is staying home and working sure has been a blessing and an adjustment. Projects popped up out of nowhere for me, but it never took away from my responsibilities as president of my club as well as lieutenant governor. I had to rethink how to meet. Well, most of us figured it out and settled into a new normal. Virtual meetings and trainings like this one takes the place of physical meeting. Together, we do Zoom meetings and have become the norm with many, if not all, clubs in the PNW district. Expanded attendance on social media platforms are happening as well. My club board is happy to meet on Zoom once a month to discuss the business of being a Kiwanian. Our first Zoom meeting was met with such excitement and camaraderie. It was great to see everyone online. Our club meetings are the same. I'm sure you're experiencing similar scenarios. I've been a music teacher for 42 years, plus in 4 different states. This year has been the most challenging for me as I cannot meet with my students. Questions come to mind like, what do you mean I have to conduct distance learning with my students, many of which do not have the technology to do so? Or, no concerts to perform for the parents and community? What do I do? Well, what do you do? Well, there are a few things to consider or implement as you enter into the role of serving as Lieutenant Governor for your respective divisions. You're going to gain a quick perspective on the clubs you serve upon your first visit. Some may be that same as your home club vibe, while others are different. Determine your meeting style, be friendly, solicit conversation with members, and get a feel of your group. I know there are some unique ways to meet the needs of your clubs in your division. Here's a short list of things to consider once you've determined your style preferences. These are not etched in stone, but serves as a springboard for you. 1, make it fun with Zoom meetings. They allow us to add an option for members of the clubs to attend without leaving their homes. Zoom affords club members to speak freely in a format that fosters a level of interaction in a comfortable environment. 2, once COVID-19 restrictions are lifted, establish your schedule for each club visit to go to a board meeting and a club meeting. If you can go to an event the clubs are providing for the community, you'll actually see the club in action. It's a great way to learn. And 3, be visible at all costs. Besides scheduled times to come and visit your club's meetings once things get back to normal, send informative emails. In other words, communicate. Take some time to get to know your club's presidents and secretaries. They are your first set of contacts in disseminating info to them. I may be preaching to the choir, as some of you already have a grasp as to your roles and responsibilities. Nonetheless, be creative, communicate, network, ask questions, and most important, make serving as a Kiwanian, as Lieutenant Governor, meaningful for you and the clubs you serve. You are the conduit to your division's clubs, PNW, and international. The training you're about to participate in is invaluable. I will be starting my 2nd year as a Lieutenant Governor and know I need to improve my game. I'm a jazz musician who knows how to improvise on the fly. However, I had to have the knowledge base in order to do that. This training is the vehicle for you to gain that essential knowledge to be a great Lieutenant Governor. Enjoy this training. Take notes. Write down ideas during this course of training. Finally, you are the person selected whose job is to see the bigger picture in serving children locally and regionally. The clubs you will serve have a unique identity and have interesting ways in meeting the needs of children in their area. Encourage them to be involved with a Builders Club, Key Club, Circle K clubs, as they are the future of Kiwanis. Look forward to each meeting or event in your division. So welcome to Lieutenant Governor training and all it has to offer. Congratulations on your choice to serve as Lieutenant Governor for the 2020-2021 year.
Okay, let's talk for a minute about expectations. What I would like you to accomplish during your year. First, club visits. Club visits in your division are really very important. Showing up at a club meeting just to spout statistics may be useful, but how long will the members listen? 5 minutes, 10 minutes? You need to make an impact, a difference in their lives, in their day. You are building relationships and influence with every visit. Something to think about is your willingness to let the clubs into your past. Talk about your special moments in Kiwanis, your successes in your service life. This isn't something you want to start with, but something that will strike a chord with your audience. I find that sharing your experiences with those to whom you are talking will evoke a like response, and that builds relationships. I strongly discourage making visits just to see if you can make the most visits in the district. This isn't about you or your resume, but about your clubs and how you can make them better in terms of membership and service. I would prefer fewer visits, but with meaningful impact. Don't expect a huge response from every club every time. Some nuts are harder to crack than others. Impact can vary from club to club. Knowing the club you are visiting, their people, their leadership, their service projects, and how they fund them are important components of your impact. You cannot make a difference if you don't know where you're starting. So take some time to learn about your clubs. Just remember that we are all in Kiwanis seeking to make a positive difference to the children in our communities. One of my favorite quotes, to paraphrase Will Rogers, is meeting new Kiwanians are just friends I've never met before. We all want to help our youth and our communities. We all just approach it from different points of view. Additional thoughts on visits? Does your club, does your division have a service leadership partner? A CKI, a Key Club, Action Club, a Builders Club, or a K-Kids? Are your Kiwanis clubs inviting an SLP representative to their meetings? Are members of the Kiwanis Club randomly attending an SLP meeting other than as an advisor? Have you visited an SLP meeting? Have you introduced yourself to the Key Club Lieutenant Governor? Please never forget that our SLPs are part of our Kiwanis family, an important part. These are important considerations when you plan your club visits. Making an impact on the SLPs is important too. Encouraging these partners, showing that you care, will go a long way to making an impact. You may never know the influence you have on our youth until you try. If you're one of the lucky ones, one day, somewhere a young person will suddenly let you know you made a difference in their lives. Those moments are what we refer to as Kiwanis moments. I have a few of those, and I hold them precious and dear. One thing is absolutely certain: you will definitely not make an impact on anyone if you don't make the first step. Make the effort. Of course, some of these visits are tougher right now due to our current state of the pandemic. Slowly, however, things will become easier. Online communication, phone calls, emails, social media make your efforts easier, but nothing beats face-to-face. Those days will return, but in the meantime, we soldier on.
As you go through today's training, you're encountering a lot of information that will assist you in your year as Lieutenant Governor of your Kiwanis Division. It's always important to remember who we are as Kiwanians and how we got here. So let's do a brief history review. Kiwanis was formed in 1915 to gather some businessmen together to get group insurance rates. This also provided an opportunity for business networking. They put together articles of association for the legal purposes, but beyond that there were few formal goals or guidelines. Then Kiwanis founder Alan Brown presented the motto, "Service brings its own reward," and presented the Kiwanis Creed, which contained 12 very wordy articles that gave somewhat of a guideline. At the first International Convention in 1918, delegates approved the first Constitution, which referred to a group of underlying policies. These were the first objects of Kiwanis. The 1919 convention saw the adoption of more formal policies emphasizing the spiritual qualities of character like courage, imagination, integrity, vision, faith, and hope. In 1920, the original motto, "We Build," was adopted. In 1923, Kiwanis decided they needed a more concise and focused constitution, so they formed a constitutional committee to draft it. The committee worked on the project for an entire year, and the 1924 convention saw the adoption of a major revision of the Constitution. As part of that Constitution, Article 2 laid out 6 revised policies. These policies are what we now know as the objects of Kiwanis. In 1925 and 26, the board expanded the policies to include vocational guidance for young men and women and an objective to create a professional standard for businesses and business professional people. 1926-27 saw the change of wording from policies to objectives. In subsequent years, each board added and subtracted objectives and refined the goals of the organization, but the original 6 objects remained the same. Coming up, we'll look at the objects of Kiwanis.
All right, let's talk just for a minute about technology and utilizing it. Technology has become such an important part of our lives, especially over the past few months. I can easily remember saying, I can get a mobile phone for emergencies, I guess. I certainly won't need it for anything else. Gosh, what a difference a few years can make. If I leave my home now without my cell phone, I feel like I'm undressed. I'm pretty certain all of you can appreciate what I'm saying. Who knew what changes technology would make in our lives? Today, cell phones, computers, and tablets seem to hold sway over our lives. If some of this new technology baffles you occasionally, take a minute and ask a 14-year-old youngster. They can usually help. We, as leadership in Kiwanis, need to adapt and overcome the new normal. This is Lieutenant Governor training. Being virtual is a prime example. Instead of meeting in Dumas Bay Center with all of you traveling long distances and sleeping in unfamiliar beds and meeting as an in-person group, we are here, sitting at home, comfortable in sweats or pajamas, sleeping in your own bed, but still managing to meet. This is a huge step forward, in my opinion. The ability to meet as we are meeting today did not exist just a few short years ago. Sure, there were meetings that consisted of smaller groups meeting in a central place, connected to other small groups in some other places. But in your home, at your computer, tablet, cell phone, that was totally unheard of. I mean, who are you, George Jetson? You, as a Lieutenant Governor, need to proactively adopt these new methods to do your jobs effectively. Even when all of these restrictions we're experiencing are lifted, these new tools will be useful. In my division, travel to all of the clubs in winter can be problematic at best. I took advantage of the opportunity to use Zoom extensively over the past few months. And while living in a rural setting using shaky internet services as I do, it can be challenging. It still works. It still has value. I have subscribed to Zoom, which gives me the ability to host meetings up to 100 people for as long as I need. You can do that, but there is an alternative. The district has a subscription to Zoom that you can utilize for meetings. Simply contact the district office and ask for Ed or Gary. I would advise you to plan in advance as the service will become more popular as we progress through our year. Also, you would need a list of email addresses of attendees, et cetera, but I'm telling you, a conversation with Ed might very well be to your advantage. Of course, with the current pandemic-related communication challenges we are facing, there are a growing number of video conferencing programs available. Programs such as Google Hangouts, GoToMeetings, Livestream, Facebook streaming, Skype Meet Now, and more. I encourage you to investigate these communication possibilities and try them on for size. If it increases your ability to communicate effectively, give it a try.
Than the material values of life. The objects of Kiwanis are stated in a specific order, and though there are 6 of them, they're not numbered, as all are equal in importance and each can stand on its own value. We'll take them in the order presented. The first object of Kiwanis: to give primacy to the human and spiritual rather than to the material values of life. Much discussion of this came about after the drafting of the object in 1923. The committee's big concern was about the use of the word spiritual. Some felt that the word should be replaced with ethical. New York Governor Lou Mitchell, the author of the object, explained that this was not intended to be a religious reference. Then International President Perry Patterson agreed. He stated that spiritual has nothing to do with theology, but instead speaks to the qualities of mankind, like courage, imagination, integrity, vision, faith, hope. He stated that not everyone believes in the Creator, but anyone can be spiritual. He felt it was the duty of churches to deal with man's relationship to the Creator, and Kiwanis' duty is to deal with man's relationships to man. Thus, the committee approved the simple but direct statement that this object made. It is tied so closely to our mission of service, first to the human and the spiritual, to give primacy to the human and spiritual rather than the material values of life.
The way the Lieutenant Governor's report this year. We will be sending links to each Lieutenant Governor at the appropriate times to coincide with the normal reporting times. This is a change from past procedures and should simplify the process somewhat. The link you receive will be a fillable PDF and will take less time than in previous years. We have also simplified the reporting form so only basic but necessary information is required. This report is very similar to what has been the standard first report with a couple of changes. Please note the report requires no paper being mailed or received, which is the green part this year. This report has been trimmed down considerably. Knowing your clubs, their successes, their challenges, their future is an important part of this report. Take the time to learn as much as you can about your clubs in order to feel comfortable filling out this report. Reports number 2 and number 3 are the same. The information is important and bears repeating. This report is potentially the most important report of all. This report is essentially a testimony of your legacy. It is so important to correctly evaluate your division. Try to think of it as wanting your division to move up, get better, improve in strength and service. Do you have any questions? Okay, one of the questions that we thought might be asked is, what is a fillable PDF? That's a link that you'll see that brings up the report, and it's got little blue lines in it that show you where you can fill it in. It's relatively simple, easy to fill out, and once you get it filled out, save it to your desktop, and then send an email back to the district and attach that as a file. Any other questions? We've got a couple of minutes. Don't be afraid to ask.
You might remind them that there's a delay. Oh, there's a delay.
Yeah.
So remind them.
Okay, we do have a delay in between your questions and them getting here. So don't worry about that. If you have a question, please ask.
How do you do that again? How do you ask a question?
They type it in the chat.
Type it in chat, yeah.
Play a little music while they're thinking of questions.
Come on, guys. I was hoping you weren't asleep yet.
All right, well, if there's no questions.
All right. There doesn't seem to be any questions coming through. But at any time during this whole day and a half, if you have a question, don't be afraid to ask. Ask in the chat or send an email. We'll be glad to respond. Thank you very much.
Hello, I'm here to talk to you about the district realignment that you've been hearing about this year. My goal today is to help you understand what the realignment is all about and where we are in this process. First, let me give you a bit of background information. Our district policies provide for the Strategic Planning and Alignment Committee, who is responsible for ongoing review of our division structure. By policy, divisions are to have a minimum division size of 6 clubs and/or 125 members. When a division falls below either or both of those numbers, it triggers a review by the committee, who is to send a recommendation to the district board at their next scheduled meeting. The committee has been in a position for several years whereby it has not been able to make any recommendations related to restructuring divisions. Going back even farther in our history, the Pacific Northwest District conducted its last complete division structuring in 1974. That was 46 years ago, and it was done due to considerable growth, which was expected to continue and be a sustainable growth period for clubs and membership. That rapid growth lasted 20 years, well into the early 90s, and we were adding divisions as needed. Then it began to slow down and move the other way. We began losing members and clubs every year, like many other service organizations. Since the mid-1990s, we have lost 56% of our members and 40% of our clubs. We began consolidating divisions over those years. Just looking at the past 10 years, we have averaged a net loss of more than 8 clubs and 300 members per year. That's 3,000 members, and during that time we continued to consolidate divisions here and there in the district. Actually, we've dropped 28% of our divisions over the years, while progressing toward an average number today of 9 clubs per division. Maintaining the 9-club average across the district is a much more fair and equitable board representation of our current membership. 2 years ago, it looked like growth was going to return to the district, but we're not quite there yet. I certainly hope we will end this year with positive growth. Under our current structure, we have 1 division with only 2 clubs. 2 divisions have 3 clubs, and 3 divisions have 4 clubs, which means that 6 of our 35 PNW divisions have 4 clubs or less, well under the minimums of our policy. The other 29 divisions have between 5 and 12 clubs today. Continuing to have such small divisions and such a difference in the number of clubs per lieutenant governor is unreasonable. So it was decided to begin a process of realigning the district all at once, instead of piecemeal as we've been doing. Let's put this situation in a business perspective. Let's say a department store chain loses 40% of its stores and 56% of its employees. It simply cannot afford the luxury of supporting its prior management framework. So, departments must be restructured, managers are consolidated, and they begin to reach out farther via telecommunication. In other words, enhanced technology, to work smarter and to function like a well-run company, rather than just continuing to maintain the course of a stagnant organization. So, now let's apply this to the district. We've lost 40% of our clubs and 56% of our members, and we simply cannot afford the luxury of supporting our current framework. Divisions must be restructured, lieutenant governors must be consolidated, and we must begin to reach out farther through enhanced technology, thereby working smarter. And yes, to function like a well-run organization, rather than just continuing to maintain our current course. Now, please take out and look at your copy of the realignment worksheet. So far in this process of reorganization, we have adopted the use of geographical names for your local identity rather than a number. The first page of the alignment structure worksheets that were sent to you prior to this weekend is a list of those names. By using names, our members, leaders, and others know where divisions are located, and it makes geographical sense rather than our current divisional layout that's become somewhat of a shotgun structure for this great district. There are 5 areas where we are awaiting division names. They're highlighted in green on the worksheet. I have also shown the geographical flow of the divisions through the district on the bottom of the page. And by the way, Kiwanis International will continue to use numbers, but our structure will show names. At this time, we are working on the details of realigning several of our divisions into a more equal and reasonable structure. The Alignment Committee's current worksheet, as you can see, called Plan 2C, is on the next 5 pages of the alignment structure you received. It displays the current thinking and agreement with divisions. And please remember, it is not a final product of any means. We are continuing to make changes as we go forward in conversations with divisions. These 5 pages lay out where clubs are proposed to be aligned in the divisions at this time. As you can see, most of the divisions don't change, or they don't change much. Our plan is to have the details all ironed out through the current lieutenant governors within the next couple of months to have it ready for a final vote by the board in August. Following adoption of the new alignment, your class will be working on the necessary changes through the next year to be ready for implementation on October 1st, 2021. As an example, several divisions will need to elect 2 lieutenant governors for the administrative year of 2021-22 due to the splitting or merging of divisions. I know this is a lot to take in, and I hope you will spend some time looking over the worksheets and becoming familiar with them for your reference. Just remember, the current lieutenant governor is the only contact in your division for both sharing this information to your clubs and the one who will be voting in August on the final structure. So I ask you to please work through them. So now I'm sure you must have some questions. So please send them in to us now. We have helpers standing by to give us as many of your questions as we can fit into the time frame that we've allowed for this topic. I thank you so very much for your attention today. Okay, so you've heard everything that we had to say about the alignment to give you some history and some current status. The first question that comes to mind while we're waiting for your questions to come in is, what are the main benefits to alignment to you, the Lieutenant Governor? And I guess what I want to say to that is that there's 2 basic main benefits in my mind. The first one is that it equalizes the divisions to a degree. We have tried our best to come to about a 9 club average for each division. And, you know, some of them are still going to have 10 or 11 clubs, and some of them are still going to have 5 or 6, or 6 or 7, I think is our minimum. But this more or less starts the equalization of the number of clubs to a lieutenant governor to serve. And the other is the voting capacity of the lieutenant governor. So when you go to a board meeting and you vote, you basically are representing your clubs. And so a person with 13 clubs gets to have 13 votes, so to speak. A lieutenant governor with 3 clubs only has 3 votes. So that's the equality that we speak of. Are there any other questions?
There's not going to be, they can't. We can't see them.
So let's go ahead and move on to the next section, which is the next object of Kiwanis. Thank you.
The next object was probably the easiest one to add to this list: to encourage the daily living of the Golden Rule in all human relationships. The concept of doing unto others as you would have them do unto you goes back into ancient history, around 2000 to 1600 BC, when in Egypt it was stated, "Now this is the command, do to the doer to make him do." Much later, in the 600 to 300 BC era, a reference has been found that says, "That which you hate to be done to you, do not do to another." That statement was taken from the negative point of view, but it does state the rule. The earliest usage of the Golden Rule, or the Golden Law, as we know it, is from the Anglican Church in Britain, as theologians and preachers started to use the phrase widely. This began around 1604 AD. Today, the thought is used worldwide. Although the phrasing changes from one user to another, the sentiment always remains the same. So it's only natural that the Golden Rule would be included as part of our Kiwanis fabric, to encourage the daily living of the Golden Rule in all human relationships.
I hope that you have downloaded your copy of the Pacific Northwest Lieutenant Governor Handbook. It was created by the Pacific Northwest District Past Governors Group with the help from several past lieutenant governors as an updated, simplified, and improved guide for new lieutenant governors in the district. It was carefully and intentionally written and reviewed, as well as recently updated. You have the most recent version.
As you have reviewed the PNW Handbook, I'm certain you've noticed that it's a step-by-step guide and focuses on exactly what you need to do during your upcoming year. The group that wrote this guide relied on the experience and background they have by actually being lieutenant governors and governors. Their experiences, both positive and negative, have helped shape this new guide. As you progress through your year, I encourage you to make notes of what you have experienced, good and bad. Keeping records of your year will be extremely helpful to your successor. Do not hesitate to think of it as a continuous improvement project. Your seemingly minor improvements can add up to a great deal at the conclusion of your term.
Yes, Governor Lonnie, I certainly agree. I will add that it's very important to build a good relationship with your predecessor and maintain, or perhaps build, a good past lieutenant governor group. This will not only help with long-term succession, but also help to support you and the clubs in the division. Building leadership in the division and in the clubs is one of our most important duties as a lieutenant governor.
The sections of this handbook include roles, eligibility, responsibilities and obligations, the election process, serving on the PNW District Board and how it operates, district officer responsibilities including training, expenses, insurance, and the consent and assurance form. It's fairly short and easy to read.
So before we finish, I want to tell you to remember to enjoy the journey. I promise it will be fun, challenging at times, and you will never forget it. For me, it was the most enjoyable 2 years in my Kiwanis journey.
So, welcome aboard. Even though you have volunteered and fully plan on serving as a lieutenant governor, this booklet will serve as a handy reference guide. If you have any questions directly related to this new handbook, please email me. And now let's see another object of Kiwanis.
It should be noted that part of the job that the Constitution Committee agreed upon early in their discussions was the idea that each of the objects should all be stated in one sentence, making them easier to remember. The subject of general conduct and bearing was high on the committee's minds when they brought this object to the table for discussion. To promote the adoption and the application of higher social, business, and professional standards. Alan Brown's original Kiwanis Creed made a lot of references to business practices and ethics as part of the general direction of Kiwanis at the time was leaning toward trade rather than service. Most of his 12 articles had some reference to those two items. He was concerned that Kiwanis should be viewed as being an above-reproach organization whose standards would never be questioned. The committee agreed with that sentiment, but wanted to consolidate his thoughts. As with the other objects, the phrasing today seems a bit formal and stilted, but the words and their sentiments still ring true today. To promote the adoption and the application of higher social, business, and professional standards.
All right, first, we've been experiencing some technical difficulties. And rather than asking them on the chat, ask that you submit an email to DSEC, and we will answer them tomorrow morning. My apologies. Like I said earlier, be patient. So please take a few minutes to look over your Kiwanis International Lieutenant Governor's Workbook. It contains several planning guidelines that are important to your coming year. You will find a letter from Art Riley, our International President for 2020-2021, as well as a list of his goals. I've known Art for a couple of years now, and I know him as a caring, selfless man with a pretty good sense of humor who has our best interests at heart. While the tendency each year was to open more clubs, adding 1 or 2 clubs additional to the year before, Art tends to be more practical and ask for 8 to 10 clubs in the PNW. Of course, that was before the COVID-19 pandemic, when everything came to a screeching halt. My goals, as you will see when I come to the goals section, tend to be a little less aggressive and a bit more pragmatic, especially considering the lack of ability to travel and meet that we've experienced and the governmental guidelines we continue to work on. There are resources in your workbook that you can access that will facilitate some of your own goals. Setting up DCMs, Division Council meetings, is a great example. There are some ideas for expanding the activities and to include Service Leadership Program. I prefer partners, but the official title remains program. Club secretaries, lieutenant governor-elects, and any membership chairs that are in any of your division clubs. I believe membership chairs are a vital part of each and every club. The basic job description remains as before, but there are some changes coming, as you'll see in a few moments. And tomorrow, when past District Governor Jackie Sue McFarland presents on club membership. There are excellent resources that are suggested on many of these pages, including links to look for information at the Kiwanis International website, like where to look for before your year begins, during your year, and as your year begins to wind down. I fully encourage you to look over this workbook. You have all, no doubt, become familiar with this type of workbook as you have served as a club president, secretary, or whatever role you served in your club. It is tough to compile a workbook like this, primarily because each club is different. Each club differs in economic, social, and ethnic composition, and that's a good thing. A club should be different because it reflects the community it serves. That being said, this work is standardized, and therein is the difficulty. There are also descriptions of club coaching, broken down into new clubs and existing clubs. The methods differ, but the goal remains the same, building a strong, resilient club. There is a section on communication with your clubs. Communication has changed over this past year, as we all know. Actually, if this pandemic has one bright moment, I believe the new methods in reaching out to one another is it. In my own division, winter was a tough time to visit clubs. There are some clubs on the other side of the Cascades that were only reachable by telephone or email most of the time. While it isn't as effective as human contact, Many of these new methods are far more effective than an impersonal email. There is a section of this workbook that focuses on club leadership education. As most of you are probably aware, the PNW district has changed the approach to club education. Under the guidance of Governor Melanie Bozak, the normal CLEs were eliminated this year and the Club Excellence Retreat were born. Please understand that was a name before the pandemic. Now, with the lockdowns, restrictions, and the like, they are now called Club Excellence Conversations. One of the things Governor Melanie wanted to do was broaden the spectrum to include more members of your clubs in discussions. Well, that thought has certainly come to life. In July, we will be presenting 4 virtual CECs, conversations, via YouTube. There is no cost to attend, and everyone is invited to participate. The reasoning behind 4 broadcasts is to allow more folks to sit at home, just as you are now, and become part of the conversation. The groups are broken down regionally in order that more individual questions can be addressed. So while you are certainly welcome to join any of the 4 conversations, we hope you can attend the one for your region. I encourage you to tune in and see how we do it in the Pacific Northwest. More to come on that later. The annual planner section in your workbook can be a valuable tool in your year. I will be asking for an action plan soon, and writing it down is essential to how you proceed. If you look at the planning calendar, try to think in terms of strengthening the club who appear to struggle, what you can do to assist them, and how you can engage district leadership in that goal. As you transition your year into the next, examine your potential successors, poll your clubs for candidates, and reach out to those who you think can do the job. Don't be afraid to ask. Some of the best lieutenant governors I know are the ones that weren't initially asked. You can help the process by passing along the information you have gathered during your year. Just remember a very important concept. This isn't about you. This is about your clubs. The members in each club are the very backbone of Kiwanis, and your assistance in making every member feel engaged and necessary is vital. Now let's talk about my goals as governor of the PNW district in 2020-2021. Okay, club building. The international president has asked me for 8 to 10 new clubs. I think that's a serious challenge under the current circumstances, but more often than not, our outstanding membership team can pull it off. I'm willing to accept whatever comes our way, but still encourage growth. Club strengthening. Once again, I've been asked to add 5% of new members to our current membership. That equates to 365 new members. I truly believe that is an entirely achievable goal, considering the number of clubs in the district. There is another aspect of membership that needs to be addressed, and that is membership retention. On average, we have a net loss of 324 members from the district each year, averaged over the past 4 years, and this has the potential of even more due to the lack of personal contact and member engagement. I think that through some efforts you will learn tomorrow, we can cut that number by 25%, only having a loss this year of 243 members. To my way of thinking, that number is still horrendous, even counting in those that move away, move on to Kiwanis in the hereafter, and age out. I know that sounds ambitious, but through some hard work and focusing on the members we have, we can save those members from leaving our family. Each club must serve its members in a manner that encourages membership, recognizes and celebrates the differences, and be open to change. Club signature projects. Each club in the district is being asked to submit a signature project. This past year, there were several great signature projects submitted, and 2 even made it to the Kiwanis International, with 1 even making the final judging. What a great way to showcase each club and the methods they choose to serve their communities and the children of those communities. I strongly encourage each club joining in on this worthwhile effort. You, as a lieutenant governor, should ask your clubs to brag a little. Give the Kiwanis world a glimpse of the serving heart each club possesses. District and division service leadership partners. Strengthen as the family is a phrase you will hear from me a lot in this coming Kiwanis year. The family I refer to are the SLPs, the CKIs, Key Clubs, Builders Club, Action Club, Big K Kids. Financial assistance for these SLPs has become less of an issue in the past few years as more Kiwanis clubs recognize the value of our branded programs. I strongly support the young folks who step up to discover their heart for service and the courage to engage. We all likely have success stories to tell about these young folks, and I am one who sings the praises. Brian Egger, District Administrator of Key Club, is part of a team at Kiwanis International exploring ways to make the SLP stronger and better. My goal this year is for each club to at least explore the possibility of starting an SLP and for each division to complete the task of starting a new one. Chartering is fairly easy, and the necessary funds are just seed money for our future leaders to take root and grow. Financial giving. Each club is encouraged to give to the Kiwanis Children's Fund, including the Eliminate Project. An increase in giving would be great, but I understand there may be problematic in our current conditions. Money will be a bit scarce in all likelihood, but I encourage you to still try. We naturally encourage you to donate to the PNW Foundation, KCCP, and SIGN. These are all terrific projects of the Pacific Northwest District. Service to children. Each club should be encouraged to do a community needs assessment and try to find a new project that serves the children of the community they serve. I strongly support joint projects that bring clubs together to serve the communities, even looking back to projects that have been retired to see where clubs can perhaps try new and innovative ways to serve. I understand that having more than one club in a community can be for historic reasons. Get over it. This isn't about you. It's about serving our communities, growing our future leadership, and making our part of the world a better place. Service hours. An increase in service hours by each club can easily be part of our club strengthening and growth. In each club, as a member, service hours will grow accordingly. Adding a club in your division would drive service hours reported higher exponentially. Adding a new project will add service hours without even trying. I would love to see reported service hours to grow by 10%. Club education. We as a district have been challenged to discover innovative ways to educate our club leadership. That is one area of my goals that will be met this year through the Club Excellence Conversations. Governor Melanie has met the challenge, and I honestly believe it is innovative, all-inclusive, and will lead the way to better education at the club level. I strongly urge you to ask your clubs to join us in these conversations and see the difference. Please remember that club officers, board members, and specific committee chairs will still be required to complete CLE, which is available in modules from Kiwanis International. And now, let's hear from our district candidate for International Trustee.
Hi there, I'm Roger Bell, and I'm running for Kiwanis International Trustee in Indianapolis this coming June. I'd appreciate your vote. Now, we're all familiar with the Kiwanis hashtag Kids Need Kiwanis, but I truly believe that Kiwanis Needs Kids is every bit as important to the success of our organization in the future. By that I mean that we become rejuvenated as Kiwanians when we work with kids. When we serve kids, we are rejuvenated, young at heart, and passionate about service to our communities. So we do need kids as Kiwanians. A couple of quick examples. One comes from Thurston County in the state of Washington, where they put on annually an event that's an Olympic-style event for 750 plus special needs students every year. These kids come in and compete in 20 events. All of our partners in that event, which it takes several hundred different volunteers to put on the event, are really rejuvenated by working with these kids and seeing the success and fun that they have. The other example comes from my home club, Blue Jeans Basketball, where we allow 4th and 5th grade students to compete in a basketball tournament that they would not otherwise have an opportunity to do. The coaches and referees are high school athletes, and they gain from that also. And to quote one high school coach, boy, these students are more coachable once they've had to coach 4th and 5th grade students. It's fantastic to see how that works. It rejuvenates me, makes me young at heart and want to serve more kids in my community. When you go to Indianapolis this year, I like visuals, so I'm going to say when there, vote for, and the last thing that I have to say is thank you.
Hey, what can I say? Roger that.
It should be noted that part of the job that the Constitution Committee agreed upon early in their discussions was the idea that each of the objects should all be stated in one sentence, making them easier to remember. The subject of general conduct and bearing was high on the committee's minds when they brought this object to the table for discussion. To promote the adoption and the application of higher social, business, and professional standards. Alan Brown's original Kiwanis Creed made a lot of references to business practices and ethics, as part of the general direction of Kiwanis at the time was leaning toward trade rather than service. Most of his 12 articles had some reference to those two items. He was concerned that Kiwanis should be viewed as being an above-reproach organization whose standards would never be questioned. The committee agreed with that sentiment, but wanted to consolidate his thoughts. As with the other objects, the phrasing today seems a bit formal and stilted, but the words and their sentiments still ring true today. To promote the adoption and the application of higher social, business, and professional standards.
All right, we have a couple of moments left. Let's talk briefly about a couple of things. First, tomorrow, during our Zoom meeting, you'll be electing a class president. For some of you that are first-time lieutenant governors, a class president is a lieutenant governor that acts as a point person for your class for 2020-2021. He or she is a member of the executive committee and has various duties throughout the year, not the least of which is to keep you informed. I have served as a class president, and the job is not unlike shooting at a moving target, but more fun. Second, just like any class, there's homework. Take the time to look hard at your division tonight and start thinking about what you can do to make it better. How you can lead your division through this pandemic and come out the other side better, stronger, and ready to serve their communities. We'll see you in the morning.